What's up, everybody? It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. I was out today and ran into one of my followers who had seen my video, or maybe they didn't see my. I don't know if I did a video. No, I did. I'm sorry, not video, but my pictures of me getting the Novavax vaccine shot that I put up on IG, I think on Facebook as well. And so I was out, and like I said, I ran into them, and they was like, "Why did you do that? Why did you, jump into that trial, that vaccine trial?" And I thought about it, and I said, "Well, you know what? I was, showing. For those that have been following me for a while, that I've been advocating that we take advantage of the upcoming vaccine rollout." They're being ran by Pfizer and Moderna. And so again, just ran into this follower who was just kind of like, why'd you do that? I'm going to invite a couple people in here real quick before I continue, though. Let me do that real quick, just get some invites. I know it's in the middle of the afternoon, but I just wanted to do it while it was on my mind. And so I'm going to do this real quick, get a couple of invites out here, and then I'm going to keep running through this thing real quick. So I'm going to do a few more invites, and then I will answer why I did this. Alright, cool. Alright, 10 more. Let's do 10 more, and then I'm going to get to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. Alright, that'll work. Alright, so here we go. So I just want to do a few invites, and I'm going to answer the question for, hey, what's up, Queen? For why I jumped into the Novavax clinical trial. Just to give a quick clarity, again, the two that are being rolled out currently are, which most people have heard, but just in case you haven't, the two vaccines that are in a sense they're at about 6.6 million vaccinations have been done in the United States. And those are between the Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine. They have been given emergency use approval by the FDA. The one I'm in, Novavax, I was originally jumped in the Pfizer trial and got knocked out the day before I was supposed to get the shot. And then so I end up getting moved to the Novavax. This is another company that's trying to bring a vaccine, to help with the rollout of the vaccinations, if you will. And so, anyway, as I said earlier in the video, I ran into one of my followers when I was out and about, and they saw that I showed a picture when I got the vaccine shot, just last week. And they was like, why'd you do that? And so I thought about it, and I was like, as much as I've been advocating, I should kind of maybe talk and walk through my personal reasons for why I was so willing to jump into the trials. If you follow the Mental Dialogue Community Club, or if you don't follow me, you don't know this, but a few years back, I put up a post that just said that it was that there was a lot of misinformation surrounding how bad vaccines were. And so for a long time, I've, quote unquote, I guess we would call a vaccine advocate, have been for a number of years, well before COVID hit. And that was basically just related to, if you understand how I do the Mental Dialogue Community platform, we always try to set up the dialogues where we welcome discussions. We actually did a show some years ago talking about vaccines, where I brought on Dr. Earl Stewart to talk about vaccines, and we brought on someone who basically had a lot of knowledge for why they didn't like vaccines. So we did that dialogue a few years ago, and just the more I kept looking into it, I realized that that there was, in my opinion, a lot more misinformation out there. And so I give the example of what we did a few years ago on the radio show, the talk show, podcast that we do every Saturday morning. I give that example because our goal has always been with our discussions is to bring both sides to the table, let them dialogue it out. I typically try to, play the moderator. I mean, naturally, I'm a human. I have an opinion too. And so, but either way, but for the most part, we welcome getting all the information out and kind of letting people decide for themselves. However, a couple years ago, I was like, wait, there's too much misinformation from an unscientific perspective, in my opinion. And I thought that it was dangerous. This was a couple years ago, maybe almost 3 years ago, that I thought it was dangerous to actually see how many of our people, black people specifically, that were starting to say, I'm not going to get vaccines. And this is way before now. I mean, obviously it's prevalent right now. So a few years back, and the reason I thought that concerned me is because I started seeing the number of infectious disease, measles, and things like that were starting to come back in certain pockets around the country where, for the most part, they had relatively been eradicated. So even back then, I had a concern. That's why I did the show back then, because the real reason why is because I was thinking about that, and if this were to start happening, I thought it would hurt our community more. This is what I thought a few years back, just with the infectious disease that we knew about at the time. I was concerned about it. So lo and behold, 2-3 years later, we get hit with this novel virus, COVID-19, and sure enough, the numbers end up hurting us the most as this new virus spread, and that is still the case, mostly in reference to, as we're hearing with this particular disease, the underlying conditions that are often associated with those who are dying. For the most part, most healthy people are still recovering. Obviously, we're starting to hear stories of people who are healthy as well that are, now that we're getting into the 300,000 deaths, if you will. Now you're starting to see, in a sense, all demographics being touched, even down to some young people to a certain extent. Again, they're not the biggest number or whatever. So it still mostly affects elderly and those with underlying condition, as far as those who end up dying, right? But within our communities here in the United States specifically, we have been hurt most to the extent that, all of us now know people who have been touched by this thing. Not even if they've recovered, we know people that have been touched. But now most of us know somebody who probably has passed away. Or I got a coworker last month. We do after school program. She had to go. She's here in Georgia with me. Had to ride to California because her sister, mom, and dad all had it, and the dad was in intensive care. So like another friend that I follow on the internet saying that her immediate family tree of those that in a sense that are left, 2/3 of her family tree has it. There's 3 of them. She's the one that doesn't, and the other 2 have. So she's in hopes that there's a complete recovery. So obviously this thing has changed our lives. So just kind of giving that backdrop, now let me get into the why I personally decided to jump into this Novavax trial. So as someone who's been advocating that we continue to look at the science of vaccines, as somebody who's been advocating that for a number of years, so at this point, again, not knowing that this COVID thing none of us knew this was gonna come, right? But I'm saying, so at the point in which there was an opportunity to, in a sense, put my money where my mouth is, I couldn't just always tell people, hey, here's what I see and why I think we should have vaccines, and then get the opportunity to participate in a trial, which I volunteered for, and not, walk it like I talk it. So really, it was just me, in a sense, being an advocate, also deciding to walk, do what I say. And so, but the biggest reason for that is because, in saying that I was concerned about our community not doing it, I needed to, in a sense, be that example. But here's why I really did this video. I want to give people an analogy that I think will bring this whole thing home, that for all the different information that is out there. So quite often when I'm advocating, whether it be on the Facebook page or on the show, people will say, well, what about holistic living and things of that nature? I'm just going to take the holistic approach. I get told that all the time. So I want to give y'all an analogy that will bring this thing, in my opinion, all the way home. I just had Dr. Stewart on a Zoom just Sunday night for our Mental Dialogue Connections event, and he gave us a lot of scientific information. He's an internal medicine doctor who does immunizations. So he gave us a lot of good scientific information. But scientific information aside, here's the analogy that I want people to understand when it comes to, I got so many people that say, well, I'm just going to hold off and I'm going to wait. Here's the challenge to holding off and waiting, and then I'll give you the analogy. So, because the guy asked me, why did you do it today? He says, I'm just going to hold off maybe, to the summer. Well, here's the issue with holding off. So while vaccines, and my side effect was I was very fatigued. There's several side effects that can come from a vaccine. So nobody's denying that. And for those who are fearful of vaccines, as soon as you say, oh, there was a side effect, they be like, that's why I'm not getting it. Well, let's put this thing in perspective, and then I'll go into my analogy. So the perspective, as far as the side effects, pretty much anything foreign entering your body may have a side effect, vaccine or a drug, if you will, right? And so what people are not considering, because again, there can be side effects, they're not all good, and some can be, again, there's a risk associated with everything. But typically with vaccines, I will say, if you do the study, they're usually very minimal, but that alone is not what I'm trying to make you comfortable. The fact that you can have a side effect, what people are not considering when they're so focused on the side effect is you're disregarding the side effects of the actual disease. So while, again, I'm in a trial stage, I'm in something that still hasn't been FDA approved. So again, so they're going to monitor me for all of the side effects before they ever approve it for any of y'all to have to take it, right? But what I'm saying is, while there are side effects, let's understand what the side effects of the actual COVID-19 disease are. So, well, of course, everybody knows about the 300,000 people that have died, right? But if you've been listening or paying more attention, that's while that number's bad, people typically do not consider the collateral damage of those who do have to be hospitalized, which is about still about 20%, or those who don't recover without major symptoms. So the quality of life doesn't return for a lot of people that experience that disease. For every one that dies, there are 3 others who experience a stroke. They live, but they have to recover from a stroke and whatever complications the stroke may have caused them. The biggest number is 14 people who never come back. For every one that dies, there's another 14 whose lung capacity never returned completely to what it was prior to getting the disease. Or for those who, I always give out the example of Scarface, who caught COVID-19 and now is a dialysis patient. Never had to be one prior to getting COVID-19, but everybody's body defends, like say 80% defended off no problem. You may be achy or at home or something, or quarantine, but for the most part, you don't need medication or anything and you recover 80% just fine. But again, if you just focus on the deaths, you don't think about all the collateral damage that exists. Well, those collateral damages, I would say that's the equivalent of a side effect of the disease versus what the side effects of the vaccine might be. So because there's been so much fear propagated with the idea of getting a vaccine, people focus on those side effects and really literally disregard just the examples. And there's way more. Like I said, three strokes per every death. There's other numbers. I don't want to make them up on you, but there's all these other conditions that unfortunately have been commonplace if you fall within that 20%. Now, let me close this thing out with the analogy. So again, anytime that I'm advocating, sometimes people will ask me, well, what about holistic living? Or I'm just going to take a holistic approach. And what they don't understand is me advocating for the vaccine is not an either or, saying do this versus holistic. Dr. Earl Stewart, again, the internal medicine doctor that we had on for our Connections event, the last question I asked him was, is a holistic approach the equivalent to taking a vaccine? And here's the facts. The facts are, while he said take a holistic approach, I advocate holistic approach. It's it's not an either or. Holistic approach and a vaccine works better than either one of them alone. A holistic approach and a vaccine works better than either one of them alone. In other words, the holistic approach or not being healthy and just taking the vaccine. But doing both is better than either one alone. Here's the analogy, and I'm going to close this thing out. So basically, I'm going to liken it to gun training. So basically, if you know how to use a weapon, right? If you get gun training or practice and go to the range and practice, if you practice and learn how to shoot your weapon very well, we're going to make that the equivalent of holistic training. So ideally, right? Ideally, what you would do in life is avoid situations in which you need to use your weapon. That's what we as humans would smartly try to do. And avoiding getting into a gunfight in this example is like avoiding getting COVID-19. Watch this analogy. It's going to make perfect sense. So as much as you would try to avoid getting in a gunfight or getting COVID-19, if you go train and take gun training or practice a lot, which we're making the equivalent of holistic training, holistic eating, holistic living, then your chances, if you do get in a gunfight, are going to be better than somebody who's not trained to use a gun because you're healthier, holistic. You know how to use your gun. Again, that's the analogy. The vaccine is the equivalent of a bulletproof vest. Keep following me here. So unhealthy living is get into a gunfight, but you don't know how to use a gun. That's unhealthy living. Holistic living is you're pretty good with your weapon in the event that you have to have a fight. The vaccine is a bulletproof vest. So this is literally what's going on when you understand the and, not either or. So if you don't know how to use a gun and you got on a bulletproof vest and get shot in the chest, you know, you ain't gonna shoot nobody else, but you ain't gonna die when you get shot. That's the vaccine for the unhealthy person, right? So the vaccine can help you even though you don't know how to use your weapon. Holistic is you being very good at knowing how to shoot very well, but you got to admit, even in a gunfight and even though you're good, would be nice to have on a bulletproof vest if you having to be in a gunfight with someone. That's the and approach, not the either or. So a vaccine is literally the equivalent I don't know if that phone is ringing for y'all. The last thing I'll say, this is not, again, I'm not trying to have an either or battle with those who are advocating healthy living. The reality is the healthy living aspect, again, is being able to shoot a weapon very well. The last aspect of it is, for some people, if they ain't already there or they've already caught it, I love the fact that we're advocating more of us to live and eat healthy. I advocate that as well. But that could be too late for some. We've already lost a whole bunch of people that, unfortunately, when we didn't quite know what this disease was or as it was running around and things of that nature, we've already lost people. And the other thing about even with holistic and healthy living, here's the other real thing aspect. As we age and get older and things of that nature, some conditions we're not always aware of that ends up being the underlying condition that maybe we didn't even know about. So obviously, unhealthy living and having heart disease and cholesterol and heart failure and all these things, high blood pressure, diabetes, things that are very common that are already major killers of many Americans and specifically in our community. Yeah, we can be very aware of those. But if you've even looked into how COVID can attack different bodies, everybody's body is responding so different to it. Your underlying condition could be something you didn't even know about, in a sense, even with healthy living. Again, shoot your gun. Learn how to shoot it. I'm just saying put on the bulletproof vest too. And so, again, I think it's something that our community needs. But this analogy hits home because, again, yeah, if you're not healthy, you damn sure need it. If you're healthy, you know how to shoot a gun well, you could handle yourself in a gunfight. I feel you. But don't act like it wouldn't be nice to have on a vest too, just in case you get shot. Ain't no guarantee you better than the people you shooting against. Ain't no guarantee that your healthy living, because again, COVID has taken out a few healthy people. Not trying to exaggerate that number, but it has done so. And so understand that analogy takes it home. Wear your bulletproof vest and get your gun training. Holistic living and vaccines. It's better than either one alone. So that's my why. Holla at y'all. If you're just now tuning in, please go check out the beginning. Just again, not advocating either or. I'm advocating and. I wish we would use and in a lot of discussions. But this one right here is vital to some people and can save some people's lives. So that's why I volunteered. It's a 2-year program. It's a 2-year trial that I'm in. I'm about to get the second session of the shot. The Novavax is a 2-week session. And so that's my situation and why I took it. And so if you get a chance to take one, I would advocate it and tell you, don't wait to see what's happening to others when the side effects of the actual disease are much worse than the side effects that we've seen from a vaccine. All right, I said I was going to end it there, so I'm going to keep it. I'm going to end it there. Again, please give that considerations, and y'all mask up and protect yourselves. If you have opportunity to take the vaccine, highly recommend it. Essential workers, for the most part, they're not even being mandated to take it. For the most part, they're volunteering. But there's a reason why they're giving it to the essential workers first, because they're going to be dealing with people who have it. And so, I couldn't imagine that they would want to harm the people that have to help the rest of us by giving them the vaccine first. Like, that makes not a lot of sense to me, just to throw that out there. With that said, I'm gone. Please spread the word on this video. Again, just giving an overall perspective for why I did it, as well as a good analogy that I think helps people understand why I'm advocating for holistic and the vaccine. I'm not advocating for one or the other. With that said, I'm gone. All right, let me see. Christina says, no thanks. Okay, I respect it. It looks like you may have just gotten in. And no problem. I'm not going to try to necessarily convince you. But I would recommend, if you just jumped in, to go back to the earlier part of the video and understand, again, the risk factors associated with the disease versus the vaccine. Like, when you compare those, there's literally no comparison. But again, that's just something, for you to, if you're open to listening to. People being already decided with misinformation definitely alarms me. So that's why I've been advocating for so long. But again, that's in the beginning of the video. I was just responding to that one response. But again, I respect your choice as well. All right, with that said, I'm gone. Check us out every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Mental Dialogue Talk Show. We do the hard conversations about race, sex, and gender, and even the vaccines, if you will, that America's afraid to have. So check us out every Saturday live, or if you have a podcasting app, just look up Mental Dialogue. We're already there on most of them: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Look us up. Just matter of fact, let me highlight one a pop-up one I just did last night. This is completely off the subject, but I just want to highlight it because it was so damn good. I have this series now called Thought for Rent. So go find the Mental Dialogue podcast and look up the last Thought for Rent. I had his brother William Agnew and Michael Sutler had this extremely high-level talk about Elon Musk becoming the richest man in the world. I almost couldn't keep up with them brothers as I was moderating that conversation. It's a 45-minute rant, really high level of what's going to happen with economics and finances going forward, especially at this time after what's happened with COVID-19 and where things are moving economically and business-wise for the future. Definitely some information that our community needs to take in and get an understanding of, and make sure that we are taking advantage of STEM like a motherfucker. I don't know if anybody that's seen my hashtag STEM motherfuckers. That's a real thing right now. Let's get these trades, let's get into STEM, and let's understand these finances, because the future will leave you behind, and it ain't got nothing to do with the color of your skin. Just know that. And so I highly recommend people find that Thought for Rent, number 15, and it literally says Understanding Elon Musk and Economics. So go find that podcast. It was super dope. All right, with that said, I'm gone. Holla at y'all. All I ask is that you think.